Hello and thank you for watching this video on Nutanix Database Service or NDB. This may be the first in a series of videos where I'll be spending a bit of time covering some of the features and functionality of NDB. But let me start by saying that provisioning and protecting databases requires significantly less time and effort using NDB. NDB is distributed as a virtual appliance. And we can see that if I just simply drill into the VM, you'll be able to see NDB listed with an associated IP address. So I've already pre-downloaded and installed the appliance. Now to access the NDB dashboard, all we simply need to do is open up a new tab and connect straight into this IP address. So if we now drill straight into the Nutanix database service itself, it's a typical dashboard. I'm not going to spend too much time looking at the dashboard itself, but you can see here there's various different metrics that will give you an overview on your current state. But if we go straight into administration from the pull down menu, you'll be able to see that I have pre-deployed NDB and it's associated with the current cluster IP address. So it's all set up and ready to go. Now from the pull down, I want to show you a couple of different things. So the first thing is the policies. So if we go into policies and then the SLAs, NDB has 5 built-in SLAs: gold, silver, bronze, brass and none. SLAs control how the database server is backed up or excluded from being backed up entirely in the case of the non-SLA. Backups can be configured with continuous protection, daily, weekly, monthly and quarterly protection intervals. If we go straight back into the pull down, and now I'm going to take you through some profile options. Profiles define resources and configurations, making it simple to provision environments and reduce configuration sprawl consistently. For example, the compute profile specifies the size of the database server, including details such as virtual CPUs, cores per virtual CPU, and memory. Now, just to get us started, the first thing that we need to do straight from deployment is we need to start looking at registering a database server with NDB. That will then allow you to deploy databases to that resource or use that resource as a basis for a software profile, which I'll go through later on. So if I go to database server VMs, at the moment we've got no database server VMs created or registered. Now if I just flip over to Prism Element, and I want to show you, I do have a couple of virtual machines all set up and running, one with Microsoft SQL Server and one with Oracle. For this video, I'm going to focus on Microsoft SQL Server, but yes, please be conscious as I take you through the process that the similar steps are available across a whole number of different supported database engines. Now if I go back into NDB, database server VMs, if I just select list, if I click register, I'm going to register the SQL Server, but again, please note that we support Oracle, Postgres, MongoDB, MySQL and MariaDB. But for this exercise, I'm just going to go SQL Server, single node server VM. And now I'm just going to put in some of the details. So the name, there it is there, so it's just selecting that. I don't need to put in, so dot, I'm going to put in, so I'm just going to log in as administrator. The password, Nutanix/4u, I think that's the correct one, yes it is. It's just discovering the VM now. And then whilst it's doing that, I think I should be able to continue, then click register. As you can see, the operation to register the server has started. If we click here, we can see the status. Alternatively, another way of getting to that is if we go down there and then select operations, you can see the process of registering that database server, and we're currently 10% of the way through, and you can see the individual tasks below. Now I'm just going to pause the video and I will resume once that's finished. Registration process finished. As it turned out, it only took 3 minutes and 11 seconds to do that. Now if you're running with either SQL or Oracle, you will need to go through this process of registering your original source VM. NDB does not have a process where you can just deploy a freshly clean SQL or Oracle instance with a database on there. We need to have that gold image, if you like. But when you go through the NDB guide that's available on the Nutanix portal, there are a certain number of steps that you can go through to check to make sure that your source VM meets the prerequisites in terms of best practices and so on. And it'll take you through more specifics on the database engine as well to help support you. So the next thing that we're going to do now is we're going to look at creating a software profile around this VM. Now think of a software profile as a VM template that includes the operating system and database software. I'm going to take you through the creation of a software profile from the database server VM we've just registered. And once the software profile is in place, we can provision additional SQL Server VMs that will all be configured the same way, incorporating the best practices defined by Nutanix and by the database vendor. So creating a software profile is a one-time operation, and it'll save you time and avoid human error as you provision new databases. So if we go straight into profiles, again, the steps to do this are pretty straightforward. We're going to create a new profile, SQL Server. We'll give the profile a name, so I'm just going to put my initials, KM, so Microsoft SQL, it's 2016. It's cluster, and it's already pre-populated. Well, I just need to select that radio button, so that's the VM, the source VM that we've just registered. And if I just click next, and now I can click create. And again, similar thing, the operations created, we can click here to see the status, so that'll just jump us straight into the operations tab. And what I'll do is, again, I'll pause the video and then I'll come back once this is finished. Okay, so we've created the software profile. It only took 1.5 minutes or just over 1.5 minutes. It always does feel like longer, but yeah, straight away. Now, so what we've done so far, just to recap, we have registered our source VM. That's the source VM that you've created, you've spun up best practices. We've registered that. Nutanix will look at their own element of best practices on their database as well. So once we've registered, we've created a software profile, and we'll probably spin back into how we can use software profiles in terms of patching Microsoft SQL Server in the next video. Now, the next step that we need to do, we need to register the actual database that's running on this VM. So from operations, we go into databases. And if we go into sources, we're going to register a database, SQL database. Please take note that we can also do things or support availability databases, failover cluster instance databases as well. And then if we go into Oracle, you've got single instance database, and we also can support RAP database as well. But back to SQL. For this exercise, I'm just going to keep it nice and straightforward. Just going to go for the single database. Database is on a server VM that is registered, because we've just done that. There it is there. Tick the box. Click next. It's discovering the databases now, so this will just take a moment or two. All I'm going to do is just select a sample DB that is running on there. Nothing too much. A database name in DB. So what I will do is I will just prefix that with my initials, KM, sample DB, and then we'll just click next. Now, this is the option where you can apply those SLAs that I mentioned earlier. So the gold, silver, bronze, brass, and none. Brass is the default. You can modify the schedule, so daily snapshots at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to keep one a day. Obviously, this is all fully customizable. You can create your own SLAs, but for this exercise, I'm just going to leave it at the default. Just as a side note, if you're looking at integrating into sort of a wider ecosystem, don't forget you've got the API equivalents there. So we provide you with that API that you can plug in to any kind of back-end or integrated systems to be able to offer an element of automation and orchestration. For this moment, I'm just going to click close, and I'm just going to click register. So that's now registering the database, and the same thing, it wants to take you back to the operations tab, so I'll just click there to go directly to it. I'm registering the database. This can take up to 5 minutes, so once again I'm going to pause the video and I'll bring it back when it's all done. Okay, so the process to register the database is now complete. It actually took less than 2 minutes to go with. So now, just to bring you up to speed, so we've registered the source VM. We've created a software profile around that source VM, and we've registered the database as well. So now we're at the point where we can deploy additional Microsoft SQL servers using NDB. So in order to do that, all we need to do is drop back into databases again. And if we go into sources and then provision a database, I'm going to go SQL Server database. I'm just going to call that, I don't know, KM MS SQL 2. In this particular case, I'm going to create a new server. So database server name. The cluster is going to remain as it is. The software profile is the software profile that we created. Compute profile I'm just going to go with probably extra small for this exercise. Network profile, just connect into the primary network. I would like to join the domain. I've already got a Windows domain profile all set up, so it'll connect into the NTNX lab domain, and the password will be Nutanix for you. Yep. And I think what we need to do now is the username, so that'll be NTNX lab / administrator. Oh, hang on, I've missed off the local there. And password will be Nutanix/4u again. That's for the worker service account. And the next thing there is just the database parameter profile that we put in there. Now the database parameter profile defines the minimum server memory SQL Server should start with, and the maximum amount of memory SQL Server will use. So by default it's set high enough that SQL Server can use all available memory. You can also enable the contain database features to isolate the database from others on the instance for authentication and so on. Server collation is a configuration setting that determines how the database engine should treat character data in the server, database or column level. And I think at this point we can just click next. So this is the section on time machine. So this is how we control the backup with this. So the database server, I'm just going to call so I'm going to go KM and I'm just going to call it the name of the database. I'm going to go just DB1. I think is probably sufficient. Database name on the VM, DB1, profile. You can also run some pre and post commands as well, just for a little bit of customization. Click next. And this is the time machine element. So again, this is where we can apply whichever SLA that we wanted to do. So at the moment I'm quite happy with just selecting brass, although we can go to something like bronze, which I will do for this exercise, and then click provision. And again, same thing, we've been here before. So if we click here to see the status, you will be able to see the provision database there. Now when NDB provisions new databases, it will follow some of the best practices automatically included and configured by NDB, such as it will distribute databases and log files across multiple vDisks. It will, for each database, it could use multiple data files, one file per virtual CPU, and there are others. These are documented within the NDB guides, again available on the Nutanix portal. And what I will do is I'll copy links directly to those on the description for this video. Now this is going to take a little while, because what it's actually going to do is, well, if I don't think you'll see anything just yet, but if we go back into Prism, you can see some of the tasks about creating additional volume groups. So there's quite a few background activities taking place, but what we're looking for at the end is an additional VM that's going to be listed in that listed in the available. So again, I'll pause the video and we'll come back when that's done. So the process to deploy our new database has now finished. Duration was about 25 minutes, 32 seconds. And you can see the steps that the whole process went through. So pre-processing, through creating the database VM, registration, applying best practices, and registering the database there as well. Okay, so what I can do now is if we just flip over to Prism Element for the moment, and you can see there, so there's the source VM, user 01 Microsoft SQL Server source, and this is our second one. This is our second database server that we have created using NDB. Okay, so that really concludes this video. Just to give you a taster of what's coming up, what we're going to look at next, we're going to look at cloning. So we're going to clone virtual machines, databases. We're also going to look at doing some manual snapshots, and then we're going to restore the snapshots. And lastly, we're going to look at how do we go about patching. And that's it. So again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.